to understand that when you're doing this, particularly when you're about to turn in scripts and you are responsible for 10 or 12 or 13, these people are spending insane amounts of time together in the room. I witnessed this. I did not understand it until I experienced it. But I am talking about 7 days a week, sometimes 12, 14 hours a day, through the weekends. There are no weekends, because when you have to deliver your shows, you have to deliver your shows. And if the scripts are not there, you have to keep working. So I'd be curious, and any of you can answer this, is as a showrunner, do you sometimes feel like a parent, and how do you manage that process, and how important is it for everybody to get along and produce? It's really an incredible accomplishment. Talk about.
I feel like a parent. Yeah. I think that's actually what's quite difficult about being a showrunner. Is that you're hired, or at least in my case, I was hired as a writer. That's what you're selling in the room. It's the script. And then and that's what my reputation had been built on, was writing. And then and then suddenly they're like, okay, so here's millions of dollars and 150 people, go. And it's a learning curve. It's a really steep learning curve. I actually sat down with, at one point I called everybody. That's David Nevins makes fun of me because the first season I was calling everybody I know who'd ever done this job before, and I was like, help. But I did at one point sit down with Cindy Holland, actually, at Netflix, I was asking her about the way that she runs Netflix, because that company has scaled so extraordinarily. And I like her, and I like her taste, because I knew her a little bit from House of Cards. And I was saying, talk to me about management, because I have no training in this, and tell me about how you inspire the people who work for you to do good work, And I listened really carefully, and she actually sent me like Netflix's whole company manifesto, and I read it, and because I do think that that's something that we, or at least I, did not have a lot of experience with, and so learning to just simple things like delegate, encourage, give compliments before you criticize. In terms of like who's responsible at the end of the day, at least in my room, my feeling is like I'm responsible at the end of the day, and that's why I get the credit for it. So I don't try to make people work on weekends. Production is different. When we're in production, that's one thing. But when we're not, and I don't, I try to get my writers out in time to go see their families, because it's important to me too, and makes a better room. But then when we're there, I expect everybody, we don't take lunch, and I expect people to be there on time and and work through the week. And actually, right. I actually have a bunch of writers who come from New York, because my show's set in New York, and because I just, it's a New York show, so I value those voices. And right. And so actually we only do a 4-day week.
Okay.
We start Tuesday and we end Friday.
That's
and we just pound.
Yeah.
I would say just to, go ahead.
Well, I just want to add real quick, because you were talking about talking to the chick from Netflix and all that stuff. I actually sat down with Courtney right before I started my show, because I wanted to know what this job is. And she said, I remember, the gist is, she didn't say exactly this, but she was like, you can't really know what the job is until you're doing it. And she said, but you've gotten this far, that means you can keep doing it. And I was like, that to me, I was like, all right. I was like, you're not, I was like, okay.
Well, to be fair to Misha, when I met Misha, I was like, oh yeah, she got it. You know what I mean? Some people have it, some people don't. I do believe that has been my experience. One thing I wanted just to say off of what, and thank you for saying that, it was a very important day for me to be able to do that. That is really rare that you can actually help another woman. It's really nice. But one thing I wanted to say is I'm with Sarah. My writers are 10 to 6. It's 5:59, get out. Now, sometimes it's 6:30, but I try to warn them about that. I don't do weekends unless we are up against it. And when I do a weekend, it's like, come to my house, have some beers, we're gonna chill and we're gonna talk, but it's not, I don't do that whole thing where you are in the room all the time. Because
I think that might have something to do with being women running this show.
Well, and moms.
Yeah.
But I also think that Greg Berlanti is the person who taught me that. When I worked for Greg was like, by the time, if it's 6 p.m., by the time you've ordered dinner, That second menu has gone around. Everyone has sort of made their phone calls about how they're not coming home. It's 8 o'clock. If you think you're going to get anything good out of anybody from 8 o'clock on, you're insane. Now, I also, Sarah and I run dramas. In a comedy room, it's different. Comedy will go on for hours and hours and hours, and those people are built for that. They know that that's going to happen. So I'm guessing the Superstore room might go longer. Do you know?
I'm a non-writing producer, so I don't ask. It has nothing to do with me.
Perfect.
I just want the scripts to be funny.
I want to make a point though that may seem unimportant, but I am a non-writing executive producer, but I am there every day because I love it. I actually really enjoy the process of watching a show come to life, and this is really kind of amazing to me. The lunch order is incredibly important. Who gets to pick the lunch, where they're going to order from, everybody getting their order exactly the way they like it, and it has to arrive at a certain time or the writers get very cranky. And so again, it's like everything you learn in kindergarten. These are like my kids. You know, I take care of these people, and you have to nurture them. Anybody here who wants to produce a show, I'm half kidding, but I'm half serious. This is an important part of your job. These are exhausting situations. And I also want to point out that I'm mostly a film producer. I didn't have a television deal anywhere. Anybody in this room who finds the right idea and is passionate about it, if I could do it, you could do it. I found a book. I optioned the book. I sold it to my friend David Madden at Fox, and now it's coming on USA. So don't believe that, oh, there are too many barriers for me, I could never do that. If you can find something original and fresh, look at each of these shows is incredibly original and unique. That's what they have going for them. They came up with original ideas that they took through the process, and they have nurtured in a very, that's the hard part, when they actually say, okay, go make your show. That is hard work. But don't convince yourself, oh, I could never do that. I don't have his relationships. People want good ideas, and that's your job as a producer. Bring them what they want, or what they think they want, or what they don't know they want, but they secretly did want. So I hate it when people say, you know, you've been doing this forever, I don't have those contacts. You know, you're just a person with a bit of IP or an idea, and it's open to everybody.
Yeah,
So,
I just wanted to add what you guys were just talking about in terms of the job itself, the showrunning job, and not knowing what the job is until you get in the room and do it, because I think that's true for everybody who ever becomes a showrunner. I ended up sending an apology letter to Bill Williman after I got my own show. Who was he's
the
guy who
main
runs
writer.
House of Cards, yeah. And I was like, I'm really sorry for being such an asshole now that I know how hard this job actually is, and it's a job that does require, honestly, a little bit of narcissism and solipsism in the beginning in order to focus and get the world down first, so then you can then teach people how to do it. But if you don't know how to do it, you know, I sometimes I don't believe that the group think comes up with a show. I think the showrunner comes up with the show, and then the showrunner's responsibility to tell everybody else. But a little while ago, I got a letter from a woman who had been on my show the first season, who now has her own show, and she was referencing the letter that I told her I'd sent to Bo, and she was like, "This is that letter." And so it's true. It's like everybody, you know, you're on another show, you think you know how to do it better, you get your own show, you make all the same mistakes, and then